Hey there, you're tuned to the Portable Crows channel. Casey here, AI7NN. In today's video, we're just going to be replacing capacitors in the filter board, the audio board, and the modulator board. These three up here on the front. And we're going to replace the electrolytic capacitors and the mylar capacitors. So stay tuned. So this is the board that we're going to be working on today. It's called the low frequency IF unit. The model is PB-1080A. And there's just, I think, 3 electrolytic capacitors on that we need to change out, and 1 mylar capacitor that has a crack in it. So it should be a quick fix. And before we take that out, I just wanted to see if the S meter works and the noise blanker works. Just make sure they're functional before we change anything. And just like the last board, at the end, any of the trimmers will spray some electrical contact cleaner on it, just for the heck of it. Why not? So we got the radio turned on, heater is off, and all I want to do is test the S meter to see if this meter moves at all. And one way to do that, since I dialed around, I couldn't find a signal. Just turn the RF gain up and we should see that. So I'm going to assume that the S meter's working. And then the noise blanker, if we turn the volume up and I turn it on, we should be able to hear a little difference. So I don't know if you can hear that, but it gets slightly quieter when I turn the noise blanker on. And then the attenuator, just for the heck of it, since we're here, that definitely works. All right, so now we'll go ahead and start taking, we'll take the board out and start changing some parts. All right, so we got that board taken out. As we can see, there's only 3 electrolytic capacitors, one there, and one there. And this is the mylar capacitor. I don't know if you can see or not. Try to get the camera to zoom in a little bit. See, there's a little crack on it. So we're going to hope to get that replaced. And according to the part sheet, or the document, the manual, and then the part list for this one board, 1080A, and go down to capacitors, there's only 1 mylar capacitor. The rest are dip mica and 3 electrolytic capacitors. So really quick change out for this. So I'm going to go ahead and change these, and then I'll go ahead and clean these trimmers and probably just spray this as well, just like the last board, with the electrical contact cleaner, just for the heck of it, since it's out. I'm not going to spray it in the board or the socket though. That looks really clean, and we haven't had any issues with things not working, so I think I'm not going to bother with that. So similar to the last board where we restored, I've marked the numbers down of these capacitors of which I'm replacing, so I can measure their capacitance and see what it is, the before and after, putting the new part in, and just see if anything really jumps out. But also, on the back, we do have some jumper cables and some capacitors for the filters at PB-1080A. So I got some pictures before taking these parts out, in case you want to make sure they get the polarity right. So definitely take some photos, but we'll end up replacing these 3 electrolytics and this big mylar. So all right, let's get to work. All right, so we made quick work of that. I did have to use the solder sucker. These were just way too small to be able to grab on and pull. Plus, each of them had, instead of going through the hole and then snipping it, they had them hooked. So I had to use the desoldering tool, little solder sucker, for all of those mostly, except for a little bit on that one and a little bit on this. But yeah, you're going to need that tool. So we got our 3 electrolytic capacitors replaced, as well as our mylar one, so much smaller. Here's all the old parts. I already checked, made sure there was no solder bridges accidentally made. So this is ready to go back in. All right, so we got that board plugged back in. I forgot to mention that I did spray this. There's 3 trimmers that got electrical contact cleaner on, and then I did the edge of the card that goes into the socket. So let that dry for a few minutes, put it back in place. I hooked up my random wire antenna again, plugged it in. So this is our first time firing up. Let's see what happens. Fingers crossed. All right. So nothing blown up. Curious. Oh, the S meter still works. Can't see it really well on the camera. And let's see if the noise blanker makes a difference. Yep, still hear stuff from there. So we'll call that a win for this. Okay, so this board that we're going to take out and replace capacitors on next, it's the audio unit called PB-1081C. So I've already done many tests regarding this, receiving, etc. I don't have a mic though, so I can't test the mic gain. But we're going to assume that works and just go ahead and replace capacitors and do the same process that we did with the other boards. Replace capacitors, use the electrical contact cleaner, plug it back in, make sure things are working. So I'm going to pull that board out, try to label the best I can those capacitors. There's a whole lot in there, so I got to do a lot of tracing. So we got this pulled out. As you can see, there's a whole lot of electrolytic capacitors that we need to replace. There's a whole lot of mylar capacitors. Some of them look pretty decent, but looking very closely at some of these, they do look like they have very small cracks in them. So we do want to replace some of those. And then on the back side, here's our board, PB-1081C. And then there's one other capacitor down here. So I'm going to be referencing the part list a lot and the schematic and try to get these mapped out and see which ones are need to go. I think there's only one dip mica capacitor in there. I'll have to confirm on the part list, but the rest all look like mylar. So lots to do here. I think I got all the capacitors marked how they should be, only the electrolytic capacitors. And what I did is I just printed out the schematic for this one card and blew it up, and then I had to go around with a pen and write in the capacitors and their values just because it's all washed out. So I did the best I could. I don't know if it's 100% accurate or not, but trying to trace this is pretty difficult just because it's so packed full of parts, and then trying to figure out where a pin goes on one side and where it relates here is pretty hard. So what I'll end up doing is, take one out, and when I can actually see clear holes of where they are, I'll try to trace it and make sure that, for example, that is capacitor 41 or that's capacitor 16. Capacitor 12 is most likely correct because that's the only 220 microfarad capacitor on here. One thing I did want to point out, according to the part list for this board, it notes that there is 6 22 microfarad capacitors. However, I was only able to find, I believe, 5. So I want to say one of these is supposed to be 22 microfarads, but there's a 47 there. So again, not sure if these are 100% accurate, and I'll take it out and try to trace it. But yeah, if I am onto it, if I am right, I'm not sure why, they would put in a 47 over a 22, or what effect that has. But I am under the assumption if it's there, I'll probably just replace it with the same value rather than try to match the schematic 100%. I don't know if that was a manufacturing error way back when they first made this. Maybe someone put it there and just called it good. I don't know. But as I slowly go through this, I'll try to map this a little bit better. But my plan, I think, is, start in a corner, replacing electrolytic capacitors, and then work my way around and just really take this nice and slow, and doing one at a time, making sure the polarity is correct. Take a bunch of photos of before, so that way if you forget what the polarity might have been, you have something to reference. And also, at the very end, after I change all these capacitors as much as I possibly can, definitely all the electrolytic capacitors and probably most of the mylars, but I'm thinking my plan will be put this back into the radio, make sure it works, and then take this back out. And underneath this, I don't know if you can see it, but there are some capacitors under this big chip here. 3 of them, which I believe are these ones, 44, 45, and 46, right here. Which there's some pins on here that I'll have to unsolder and pull this whole board out to get to it. So, but that's on my to-do list. But this is probably the most time-consuming board to restore capacitor-wise, just because there's so many. So if you're going to do the same, just do a nice, slow approach. Take your time. Have fun with it, because it looks like it's going to be a slog. So that's my game plan. So I just did a few capacitors, but I want to give an update real quick. So I just replaced the 2 here and this 1 mylar capacitor. And, I was using this meter to be able to get the capacitance. And it's just not working out very well to see how healthy these old capacitors are. I just really want to see, because everything I'm measuring, the capacitance is a lot higher than the rated, which is still fine, because apparently these electrolytic capacitors, I don't see any letters on them like an M saying it's plus or minus 20% or a K. So my assumption is the tolerance for these is negative 20%, so 80. 80 would be a good value, anything above that. And apparently plus 80%. And apparently, from what my research, some older capacitors, probably back when these were made in the 70s, can also go up to plus 100%. So a good capacitance value could be 80 to 200 microfarads for this 100 microfarad capacitor. So what I did is I got that LCR T4 meter, and I made some alligator clips so I can actually measure these. So let's see if we can get a better measurement here, and just see if we can get a better reading of the health of this capacitor. So what do we get? Capacitance 148.2, which is fine, but the resistance ESR is 2.1 ohms, so not the best. It's okay. And then the voltage loss percent, 1.8%, that's still pretty good. So this capacitor isn't bad. It's a good idea to replace these because they're getting old, but not terrible. Let's do this one. Let's see if this gives us anything to boast about why we're doing this. Okay, so 163 microfarads, 1.9 resistance, velocity loss 1.7%. Also not terrible. So, I mean, changing these electrolytic capacitors probably not a bad thing. I don't know a whole lot about capacitors and them aging, but reading that, it's not terrible. These mylar capacitors, I don't know if we'll get a resistance or not on this. Let's see. I haven't measured one of these yet. In fact, with this one, the leads are long enough. Could probably just plug it right in there without these alligator clips, but we'll just stay consistent. Yeah, so this mylar capacitor is great. 0.1% for voltage loss and 46.67 microfarads. And this is a 0.47, or not microfarads, nanofarads. This is a 0.47 microfarad. So that's a pretty good capacitor. So these mylar ones, for the most part, are probably okay. I'm still going to replace it just because like this one's got a crack in it. Some of these other ones do. So just wanted to give you an update on these meters. I'm going to try to use this now just to get the ESR and that voltage loss percent, just so I can see if I really do come across a really bad capacitor. So at some point in this video, I'm going to display all the values of the old capacitors and the new ones. But these three, I'll get the values of what they are using this meter, but the three that I just put on here, these two and this mylar, all I got was the capacitance on that. So I'm going to have a table with up-to-date values starting now. And if we go back to the previous board, that one board with the filter, forget the model number, but the one with the filters, those capacitors, I already threw them away. Garbage man already came and took it. So I can't get new measurements on that. Same with that power regulator board. So starting now, I'm going to start using this now that I got these clips and just see if we can get some better measurements. So it's not needed. I like numbers. I want to see what they look like. All right, little update time. I'm going through replacing all these electrolytic capacitors and a bunch of the mylar ones. So all these dark green mylar capacitors are the new ones. Still got our old orange one still there. This one down here, that's the dip mica capacitor that we're not going to replace. And that film capacitor here we're not replacing. But what I wanted to update you on was this capacitor here, which I believe was C22. So when I measured that, I'll just give you a demo actually. I'll put this in our LCR meter. It's measured at 16.61 nanofarads. So looking at the schematic for C22, it's wants a 22 nanofarad capacitor. So I don't know if this capacitor really went bad. Looks basically brand new. So either it went bad or they put some other value here. And this capacitor kit that I have here, it doesn't have that value. So the closest would be either 15 or 22, but the schematic calls for 22, so I'm going to go ahead and use the 22 there. I was doing a lot more research, mostly because of this capacitor, C38, I believe this was, which according to the schematic says to put a 22 microfarad capacitor there. And what we had originally was a 47. And I was Googling about that, and apparently, and I couldn't find the actual reference. This was all Google AI. And it was, according to it, it was saying that certain models or production runs would replace that with the 47 microfarad to help improve audio, to make it sound less tinny, apparently. And I guess Yaesu had service bulletins or something, and I could not find any references to that. So later on, when I get further through this, I think I'm going to go ahead and take this 22 microfarad back out and put it back as 47 because that's what it was. I want to try to keep what was here original, especially given that, the Google answer I had. So that kind of makes me think if this was 47, but the schematic says 22 microfarads, I wonder if that value was the same thing. And I could not find anything with Google AI or anything regarding that changing to 16 nanofarads instead of 22. So that's the update I wanted to give you. This is slow progress. I've just been chipping away at it, hour here, hour there. So yeah, another few hours and I'll hopefully be done, and we can turn this thing on and see if all this effort was worth it. So back to work. I finally did it. I got them all replaced. Every single electrolytic capacitor and every single mylar capacitor. Probably went overboard on replacing all the mylars, but I figured, heck, why not? Just get it all out of the way. And one thing here, I believe it was this capacitor, this mylar one right here, which would have been, I believe, C30. Directly underneath it was another mylar capacitor. According to the schematic, it's supposed to be 0.0022 microfarads, I believe. And what I ended up having, let me check my notes here real fast. It was, where is it? It was, hang tight. So much documents here. All right, one of them was 965 picofarads, and the other was 1,115 picofarads for a total of 2,080 picofarads. So I just replaced that with the equivalent capacitance, so that way I can get rid of the one back here. And I'll have a table of everything showing of what the old values were and the new values. So capacitor wise, everything on here is new for capacitors other than this film capacitor and that dip mica capacitor. So I went ahead and double checked the polarity on all of these with my before photo, and they all look good. I also went on the back here and confirmed, as best I could, that I didn't create any solder bridges. And I also went ahead and replaced the 3 capacitors underneath here. I don't know if you can see that, but those 3 capacitors underneath this big chip, I lifted this chip off and replaced them. I also went ahead and sprayed electrical contact cleaner on all of these trimmers on the top and the bottom and the pins here. So I think I'm ready to go ahead and put this back in the radio and see what happens. Oh, and a couple tips to help with this. If you do decide to do this, you definitely want a desoldering pump, the little desolder sucker thing. What I found out was if that thing gets any cloggage, just even a partial clog, it will not work very well. So I had to clean that out several times, and as soon as I did, it cleared the pin no problem. It was very, very nice. Another thing is I used an old nail, and I would just kind of hover on the backside and have a light above, and I can see, put the point on one end, and then I can turn the board around and see where I was pointing at and really help me find where I needed to desolder. Because, man, this thing is just so crammed full. It was really hard to, determine otherwise. So having some sort of pointer tool that you can put underneath and try to align it up to the capacitor you want to replace, was just really nice to have. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and put this in the radio, and let's see what happens there. Okay, so I got the card put back in. I'm going to leave the heater off, and I'll leave it in upper sideband and probably just go to the 20-meter band. And I have the random wire antenna draped around the garage like I did before. And if I turn it on, nothing pops and explodes or starts smoking, I'm just going to try to see how well receive works. That's all I'm going to do. So let's just see what happens. Moment of truth, right? 3, 2, 1. Okay. I got volume. Oh. Let's see if we can find a signal. Let's see if... Oh, heard something. So I'm just going to tune around a bit and try to find a signal, and then I'll get an update here in a second. All right, so we're going to replace capacitors on another board now, the modulator unit, PB-1078A, this one right here. Just a few capacitors on that one to replace. So let's get to it. I'll take it out and we'll see what it looks like. All right, so I got the card out, PB-1078A, and there's one screw, two screw, and another screw holding this in place. So you're gonna have to get 3 screws removed to pop this out. And I'm pretty sure there's only these 2 capacitors, a mylar capacitor and an electrolytic capacitor to replace. So it should be pretty quick to replace those. And then like the other cards, I'll clean the little trimmers here with some electrical contact cleaner as well as the card pins. And I might even just spray it in the socket. I'm gonna look at the socket a little bit closer and just double check, but I don't think it needs it, but I might do it just for the heck of it. But anyway, I'm gonna work on getting those out, measuring them, and get some new ones in. All right, so made quick work of that. Got the one electrolytic capacitor and the one mylar capacitor replaced. So I'm ready to get that plugged back in. And I already got the trimmers and these pins here sprayed with the electrical contact cleaner. So I'm gonna get this reinstalled and do another quick test. So I put the card back in, got everything pretty much how it was. Heater's gonna stay off. We're just gonna turn it on and see if we get any smoke. 3, 2, 1. Right on. Well, the light turned on really quick that time. So I'm just gonna tune around. I'm gonna try to find a signal, and then I'll be right back. All right, really quick update. I was not able to get a strong enough receive signal for a demo. You know, I'd spun the dial around for a good 10-15 minutes, changed the bands even, and couldn't pick up a strong enough signal to really do a good demo. It was just everything's buried in the static. I didn't check band conditions or anything either, but I don't think the radio's busted, but I definitely think it's way out of alignment now. You know, we did replace a lot of capacitors, so it's a good chance that it's just out of alignment. I even added this little tuner, manual QRP tuner, just to help make the noise, you know, tune for higher noise to see if that would bring in some other signals, and didn't have a whole lot of luck. So I think we're just out of alignment. So I don't think anything broke. I did hear signals down in the noise. But with that said, I have always had kind of a difficult time getting some signals to receive on this radio. You know, I get lucky here and there finding a good strong signal, but I spin the dial a lot trying to find it. So I want to get you move this camera over and get a better image. I think my issue might be related to this board down here. There's a MOSFET the Q1 MOSFET, which is the RF amplifier. And I believe that's a pretty well-known part with my research, that part goes out. On this particular board, that MOSFET's soldered in place, but newer models of the FT-101, that board has an actual socket to quickly swap that MOSFET in and out. So I think Yaesu kind of caught on to that, where, you know, that part might have gone bad, so they had to swap, you know, the transistors pretty frequently. So I think in a future video, I will be replacing that part. I don't have a way to test it, you know, to see if it's any good or not. I don't have a way to test for gain. So I'll probably just swap that part out and see what happens. But so it's either we're way out of alignment, or I also have that bad RF amplifier. So future video on that. But I think that's going to wrap up today's video on, you know, replacing the capacitors for these 3 boards. It was probably overkill replacing all of the mylar capacitors, but, you know, some of them were cracked and kind of going bad, so I figured let's just replace those all anyway and just get it over with. It was a lot of work, but I'm hoping in the end it was worth it, because I'm shooting for, you know, restore this once and hopefully it will last another 30 years without having to, you know, change parts, realign it, etc. But yeah, a lot of progress made, and I think that's gonna conclude this video. So I'm gonna sign off from the Portable Crows channel for now. I appreciate you all watching. Definitely a huge learning opportunity here. Hopefully you're learning. But yeah, I will catch you in the next video. 73.
I'm now a radio man. You can bet your boots he knows his stuff.